overpowered being on the entire planet, what would you do? Would you relish in that power, making the world recognize you for the masterpiece that you are? Or would you prefer to live a regular life as an ordinary Joe, letting your powers out only when the situation calls for it? Whichever camp that you're in, let me know down in the comments section below. Well, the title's already a spoiler for this one, isn't it? But we're going to be taking a look at what I think are the top shows that deal with the latter. Flexors have their appeal, and I absolutely love seeing someone like Arnos demolish some poor slob, but I find a tiny bit more appeal in the secret OP characters. Imagine someone thinking you're just an ordinary guy, only to get a first-hand taste of your power. Now, wouldn't that be a fun turnaround? It may not be as big now, but Mahouka was quite the hit light novel back in its day. That's to say, a little over half a decade ago, back when I was at my peak in terms of consuming anime. It's no secret that the show has a place in my heart, and a lot of that has to do with how sleek and cool the world looks. I just dig the setting so much with how it intertwines magic and science in a more elaborate way than what we're used to getting in these urban fantasies. For others, however, the appeal lies in the sheer satisfaction of our protagonist constantly getting underestimated and showing everyone what he's made of. After all, he may be classified as a lower tier student in terms of only one specific area, but in terms of everything else, there's little that God Suya can't do. With the protagonist being the equivalent of a military superweapon, a genius engineer, a lethal battler, and a master analyst, we could all agree that the God Suya nickname is more than deserved. Dare touch Miyuki and say goodbye, as they say. Next, we have King's Avatar. Back in the days, when people talked about Mahouka, somewhere down the line there'd be a mention of SAO. The two have been heavily promoted together since they're under the same publishing label, both star an introverted OP guy, they have the same pseudo-harem elements, and they both are polarizing to say the least. Mahouka and SAO's second seasons even aired at the same time period, which brings me to a title about video games. Enter King's Avatar, a story of the greatest glory players fall from grace and road towards triumph. Well, we've got a lot of shows about video games, not a lot really put as much focus on the actual esports and out-of-game aspects of it, something which I think gave King's Avatar its major niche in the scene. Where else would you find an anime that gives you so much insight on the business or political side of being an esports player? It was an unexpected hit that took a while to pick up with the fans, but Yishu's journey, starting from having everything taken away from him and ending with him championing a new legacy with his new account, had me constantly on the edge of my seat. If you're up for an esports story that puts in great focus on the drama outside the actual game, then King's Avatar may be the one for you. King's Avatar isn't a pushover in terms of cool fights, but you would think that if you put it side by side with our next entry, Mob Psycho. Mob Psycho, popular Creator One's work which gets lauded for its breathtaking animation and fight direction. It wasn't a surprise that Mob Psycho became such a big hit. When I watched it, I was just taken aback. How could you not be with a show that's this exciting, especially in a genre that I'm very fond of? Well, Mob himself may not like how much I just talked up about his show. Socially awkward and incapable of reading the atmosphere, Mob, whose real name is Shigeo Kageyama, has a lack of friends, and that doesn't really bother him. It's better that way, especially given his amazing powers that are tied to his emotions. Bullies really beware. Mob may not look it, but push him and you'll live your life regretting it. Overall, the animations are the main attraction of Mob Psycho, but I also love the series so much for its intricate character writing. The dynamics and the character development parts are so top-notch that I find it quite unfortunate that they actually get overshadowed by the people who can't stop talking about the animation. Oh, and if you're enjoying the show so far, don't forget to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. It helps with the YouTube algorithm so much, and it will motivate me to keep making more and more videos for everyone. Now, I don't want to hold you up any longer, so let's get back to the show. Talking about this show just takes me back. It took no less than an episode for God of High School to wow the world with its animation, fluid fights, and premise that quickly hooked people in. Fighting tournament anime are rare, but there's something so appealing about the way God of High School went about it. I don't know if Baki is the most proper comparison to this, but it just has that atmosphere to how over the top the fights become, with tournament participants coming in literally all shapes and sizes. It's a battle royale for the ages, and while I won't say this is my favourite webtoon adaptation among the ones 2020 gave us, it's one hell of an adrenaline booster. God of High School may have its shortcomings in terms of pacing and decisions that the anime team took, but it sure never gets dull when the fighting starts. Coming up next is probably one of the most popular mecha animes of all time, Code Geass. Wait, Code Geass? Yeah, I get that surprise reaction. For such a spectacular and charismatic character, you wouldn't really expect Lelouch to be one of these people. Most images you'd find of him have him looking so full of swag, and he's known to be a master chess master amongst chess masters in the world of anime. Well, he never started out that way, and that's after his development, a long road where he actually learns to drop the stoic facade and become more emotional, heroic, and extreme in his ways. Which is just one of the things to show what a ride Code Geass was, especially for those following it in the late 2000s. Combining the cool appeal of mecha anime and its tension-filled fights with more mature content like politics, morals, and psychology, Code Geass managed to catapult itself to the upper echelons of critically acclaimed anime. It was such a phenomenon that the franchise still gets new content to this day, and when it does, expect the internet, well, the older sector of it, to blow up in hype. Code Geass is really a show that you just have to see. Its recognition is more than well deserved, and I wouldn't do it justice just by talking about it like this. We've not seen the last of one's footprint in this list with Mob Psycho. Oh, no, 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 no. Not when the next entry is 2015's phenomenon, One Punch Man. The meme face says it all. If you're someone in the One Punch Man universe, the last thing you'd expect out of the listless Baldy is to be able to utterly decimate you in one punch. Who knew that the strongest hero amongst all those cool appearances was the Simpleton? But that's exactly what makes One Punch Man so fun. It's an action show that's also a parody of the whole shonen and superhero genre. It's got a lot of big moments and scenes that makes your jaw drop, plus the heart-pounding battles that you'll just keep on talking about for days on end. Besides that, I just like how One Punch Man handles its balance. Yeah, it's a fast-paced action show that presents itself as something you shouldn't take too seriously, but how can you do that when it suddenly rains you with feels like Moomin Rider's whole shtick? When that soundtrack comes in and all of a sudden, you feel like you're watching a completely different show. I think that's what makes One Punch Man such a lovable show. It pulls you in with the crazy stuff wrapped in a fake underdog story from some angles before hitting you hard with emotion and drama you can't help but just get caught in. Let's not stop with one Chinese anime and go to the next one with Fulltime Magister. Fulltime Mage is quite an interesting title. It's a 2016 show that has a lot of elements, including an art style, that feel like they're very inspired from Japanese media from a decade ago. You've got a world intertwined with magic, the magic schools, and the cool, edgy protagonist. Not quite as edgy as the ones in revenge fiction, but now with sizable rough edges to give him that badass feel. Unfortunately, more key info would need some reading to do because the actual show starts with little introduction about the world. Not that it detracts from the experience, because you're also focused on following the story of our hero, an aspiring magician who looks to prove the world wrong. Despite everyone mocking him about poverty and his lack of magical ability, Mo Fan actually gains access to the fire and lightning elements. How's that for a two-pronged attack against the world that dared to look down on him? Does that remind you of Mahawka? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? If you like one, you'll definitely like the other since they share so many elements. The cool thing about Fulltime Magister is that you have a lot of seasons to go through, so if you're up to the task of following the rise of the nation's greatest magician and you've got the time, make sure to try out this show. We finished the Chinese anime train with Daily Life of a Mortal King. Defeating a demon lord at a young age grants you immense power, so great that Wang Ling, now reincarnated in the present, faces his greatest challenge: senior high school. Talk about Arnos Voldigode vibes. Unlike Arnos though, Wang Ling decides to tuck his powers away and live a life as a carefree teenager. That's all he wants to do. None of the supernatural craziness, none of that world-ending magic. Instead, he just wants to be a plain old high schooler. Of course, that's going to be one insane challenge because you just can't outrun the forces beyond, and one wrong move and it's the end of the world as we know it. Finally, he still ends up flexing on others subconsciously, and comedy ensues. The show may not be a Japanese anime, but takes a lot of elements from popular titles, including one that we are going to get to shortly. Combining comedy with flashes of action, Daily Life of Immortal King is a show that a lot can like. You should try the first few episodes to see if it's your taste, but I think that it's a nice, light show to enjoy. Last on the list is Psyche K.
なぜなら私は美少女だから。それだけ。
Psychic powers are a blessing, right? Apparently not if you're Guso Psyche, who wants nothing more than to have an ordinary life free of the supernatural inconveniences. However, with powers as strong as his, that's a lot easier said than done, especially if various animated personalities want nothing more than to hound you thanks to the abilities. Psyche's life is indeed nothing short of disastrous, and fun to watch for the viewers though. This series of shorts has been a fan favourite among anime fans. It also didn't take too long for me to be caught up in the wave, and it's a show that I'm glad I picked up. The episodes are very easy to watch and come up with all sorts of creative circumstances to be used for creativity. A short can also feel Psyche's pain as the world just won't leave him alone. Whether you're someone who likes comedy anime or not, I can easily recommend this one for you. With 5 minutes per episode, the 200 episode count is not as daunting as it may seem, and it's a really good way to pass the time with some magical craziness. The whole cast of weirdos will keep you in stitches, and if they don't do it to you in the scenarios, the fourth wall break surely will. ただ届かなかったら困るから気持ち強め。 And there you have it. Those are my top picks for shows where the main protagonist is hidden OP. Which one amongst those is your favourite? Let me know down in the comments section below. Now, if you think you're up for more of this sort of thing, then please check the channel for more countdown videos. The channel mostly caters to shonen and psychological suspense fans, but there's also content about romance and drama titles. Support would also be much appreciated as well, and that can be either in the form of channel memberships, my Patreon, or Instagram. Let's help each other grow those communities, right? It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you next time. ViniiTube here saying farewell for now.